Captain Jake Morrison walked across the bridge of the UES Thunderstrike with steady steps. The massive warship moved through the dark space at the edge of Earth's solar system. Jake had been captain for 3 years now, and he loved his job. The Thunderstrike was humanity's pride and joy. It was the first real warship that Earth had ever built for deep space travel. The ship was huge. It stretched over 800 meters from front to back. Its hull was made of the strongest metals that human science could create. Big guns covered the sides of the ship. Railguns that could shoot metal bullets faster than lightning. Missile tubes that held enough firepower to destroy entire cities. And the new plasma cannons that could melt through almost anything. Lieutenant Amy Parker sat at her station watching the computer screens. She was the best sensor operator in the Earth Navy. Her job was to watch for anything dangerous in space around them. For weeks now, everything had been quiet. Too quiet, Amy thought to herself. "Captain, all systems are running perfectly," said Commander Tony Phillips from his position near the weapons controls. Tony was Jake's second in command. He was a good man and a great fighter. Jake trusted him with his life. The bridge was busy with 20 crew members working at their stations. Each person had an important job to do. Some watched the engines. Others kept track of the ship's path through space. A few worked on communications with Earth. Jake looked out the big window at the front of the bridge. Stars filled the black space around them. It was beautiful, but also dangerous. Earth had only recently learned how to travel faster than light. This was humanity's first real step into the galaxy. Jake knew that other species might be out there. Some might be friendly, others might not be. "Sir, I'm getting something strange on my sensors," Amy said suddenly. Her voice was worried. Jake walked over to her station quickly. "What do you see?" Jake asked. Amy pointed at her screen. "There are some unusual energy readings coming from the direction of Alpha Centauri. They don't match anything in our database." Jake studied the readings. They looked different from anything he had seen before. "Could it be a natural space phenomenon?" "I don't think so, Captain. The energy patterns are too organized, too controlled," Amy replied. Commander Phillips joined them at the sensor station. "How far away is it?" "About 2 light hours from our current position," Amy answered. Jake made his decision. "Set course for those readings, but keep our weapons ready just in case." The Thunderstrike changed direction and began moving toward the mysterious energy source. The crew became more alert. Everyone knew this could be humanity's first contact with alien life. What the humans did not know was that they were being watched. Far away in space, 12 alien ships hung in the darkness. They had been following the human warship for many days. The aliens called themselves the Zephyrian Empire. They ruled over many star systems and had conquered dozens of other species. Commander Vex Thalar stood on the bridge of his flagship. He was tall and thin with gray skin and large black eyes. His species had been the rulers of this part of the galaxy for over 1,000 years. They had never met a species they could not defeat. "The human ship is approaching our position," reported his science officer, Krell Vashti. "Good," Thaler said with confidence. "This will be easy. Their ship is primitive compared to ours. We will scan them first to see what kind of weapons they have. Then we will demand their surrender." The Zephyrian ships were twice as large as the Thunderstrike. They had energy shields and powerful laser weapons. Their hulls were made of materials that were almost impossible to destroy. Thaler was sure that one Zephyrian ship could easily defeat 10 human vessels. "Sir, should we contact them now?" asked his communications officer. "Not yet. Let them come closer. I want them to see our full fleet before we make contact. Fear will make them surrender faster," Thaler replied. Back on the Thunderstrike, Amy's sensors suddenly exploded with activity. "Captain, multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace, 12 ships all around us." The bridge became very busy very quickly. Red lights flashed as the ship went to battle stations. Crew members ran to their emergency positions. The peaceful patrol had suddenly become something much more dangerous. Jake looked at the main screen as 12 alien ships appeared around them. Each ship was larger than the Thunderstrike. They formed a perfect circle around the human vessel. Jake had seen military formations before, but this was different. These ships moved with precision that showed years of practice. "All weapon systems online, Captain," reported Chief Petty Officer Lisa Grant from the Weapons Control Station. "Shields at maximum power," called out Lieutenant Commander Steve Walsh from his tactical position. Jake stood in the center of the bridge, looking calm even though his heart was beating fast. This was the moment that would change human history forever. First contact with an alien species. He just hoped it would not be humanity's last contact as well. A voice came through the ship's communication system. It spoke in perfect English, which surprised everyone on the bridge. "Human vessel, this is Commander Thaler of the Zephyrian Empire. You are surrounded and outgunned. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your complete destruction." Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. They were scared, but they were ready to fight. These people had trained their whole lives for moments like this. They would not give up without a battle. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship, Thunderstrike. We are on a peaceful mission. We do not wish to fight, but we will defend ourselves if attacked." Commander Thalar laughed when he heard the human response. "Peaceful mission? Your ship is covered with weapons, but it does not matter. Krell, begin a full tactical scan of their vessel. I want to know everything about their capabilities before we destroy them." The scan began immediately. Invisible energy beams reached out from the Zephyrian flagship and touched every part of the Thunderstrike. The aliens expected to find primitive weapons and weak defenses. What they found instead would terrify them beyond belief. Science Officer Krell Vashti watched his scanning equipment with growing confusion. The numbers on his screen did not make sense. He ran the scan again, thinking his machines were broken. The same impossible results appeared. "Commander Thalar, I need to run this scan one more time," Krell said nervously. "Why? What is taking so long?" Thalar demanded. He was getting impatient. "Usually scanning a primitive ship took only a few minutes. The readings are very strange, sir. I want to make sure they are correct," Krell replied. On the Thunderstrike, Lieutenant Amy Parker noticed the alien scanning beams immediately. Her equipment showed energy waves hitting their ship from multiple directions. "Captain, they are scanning us," Amy reported. "The beams are very powerful. They are trying to look at everything on our ship." Captain Jake Morrison nodded. "Let them scan. We have nothing to hide. Maybe they will see that we are not a threat to them." But Jake was wrong. The aliens were about to discover something that would change everything. Krell finished his third scan and stared at the results in shock. The human ship's power core was not what he expected. Instead of simple nuclear fusion, the humans had built something far more advanced. They had created a miniature antimatter reactor. Antimatter was the most powerful energy source in the universe. The Zephyrian Empire had been trying to build stable antimatter reactors for hundreds of years. Their best scientists said it was impossible to make them small enough for spaceships. Yet somehow, these primitive humans had done it. "This cannot be right," Krell whispered to himself. The scan also showed the human weapons in detail. Krell had expected to find simple chemical rockets and basic energy weapons. Instead, he found electromagnetic railguns that could fire metal slugs at incredible speeds. These projectiles moved so fast they could punch through the strongest armor like it was paper. The humans also had something called plasma cannons. These weapons created tiny stars and shot them at enemy ships. The temperature was hot enough to melt any known material. Even Zephyrian battle armor would not protect against such weapons. "Commander, you need to see this," Krell called out. Thalar walked over to the science station. "What did you find?" Krell showed him the scan results. "Sir, their power systems are more advanced than ours. Their weapons are also much more dangerous than we thought." Thalar looked at the data and felt his confidence begin to crack. "Are you sure these readings are correct?" "I have checked them 3 times, sir. The human ship is not primitive at all." But the worst discoveries were still coming. The scanning beams went deeper into the Thunderstrike's computer systems. They found the ship's armor specifications. The human vessel was not covered in simple metal plates. Instead, it had layers of advanced composite materials that could repair themselves when damaged. Tiny machines called nanobots lived in the armor and fixed any holes or cracks automatically. The ship's defensive systems were equally impressive. Point defense weapons covered every part of the hull. These small guns could track and destroy thousands of incoming missiles at the same time. The targeting computers were faster and more accurate than anything the Zephyrians had ever built. On the Thunderstrike, Lieutenant Commander Steve Walsh monitored the ship's defensive systems. "Captain, their scanning is very thorough. They are looking at everything we have." "Good," Jake replied. "Maybe when they see our capabilities, they will decide to talk instead of fight." Jake did not realize that his ship's capabilities were terrifying the aliens more with each passing second. Krell continued his deep scan and accessed the Thunderstrike's databanks. What he found there made his blood run cold. The human military files contained information about their history of warfare, page after page of battle reports, weapon designs, and tactical manuals. The humans had been fighting wars for their entire existence. They had created weapons designed to kill in the most efficient ways possible. They had strategies for fighting in space, on planets, underwater, and even underground. Every environment was a battlefield to them. Krell read about human battles where millions of soldiers died in single conflicts. He learned about weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. He discovered that humans had rules for war, but these rules were about making war more efficient, not less deadly. "Commander, there is more," Krell said with a shaking voice. "What, now?" Thaler asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know. "The humans have detailed files about biological warfare, chemical weapons, and something called nuclear bombs. They have already used these weapons against their own species." Thaler felt sick. "They use such weapons against their own people?" "Yes, sir. And according to these files, they consider it normal. They call it total war." The scan revealed more terrifying details. Humans trained for combat from childhood. Their schools taught military tactics along with reading and math. Their entertainment was filled with stories about war and fighting. Even their sports were based on combat and competition. Other alien species in the galaxy fought wars when necessary, but humans seemed to exist only for war. It was not something they did. It was something they were. Commander Phillips noticed that the alien formation was starting to change. Some of the ships were moving further away from the Thunderstrike. "Captain, I think our visitors are getting nervous," Phillips reported. Jake looked at the tactical display. The aliens were indeed backing away slightly. Maybe they are starting to respect us. On the Zephyrian flagship, panic was beginning to spread among the crew. Officers gathered around Krell's station to see the scan results for themselves. Each new piece of information made them more afraid. The humans were not just another species to conquer. They were something the Zephyrians had never encountered before. A species that had turned warfare into an art form. A people who would rather die than surrender. And according to the scan data, the Thunderstrike was not even humanity's most powerful warship. It was just a patrol vessel. The files mentioned entire fleets of warships, orbital defense platforms, and weapons that could destroy planets. Commander Thaler realized that his 12 ships were not facing a primitive enemy. They were facing representatives of a species that could threaten the entire Zephyrian Empire. The hunt had suddenly become something much more dangerous. The hunters had become the hunted. The scanning beams went deeper into the Thunderstrike's computer systems. Krell Vashti found himself looking at classified human military files that made his worst fears seem small. The data was organized in sections labeled Historical Combat, Analysis and Strategic Warfare Documentation. "Commander Thaler, you must see this immediately," Krell said with terror in his voice. Thaler rushed to the science station. Other officers gathered around them. What they saw on the screen would haunt them forever. The first file Krell opened was titled Siege Warfare Tactics. It contained detailed reports about human battles where entire cities were surrounded and starved. The humans would cut off all food and water until the enemy surrendered or died. Some sieges lasted for years. The humans were patient when it came to war. "They starve entire populations?" asked Lieutenant Vex Kolar, the tactical officer. "It gets worse," Krell replied as he opened the next file. The second file showed something called Scorched Earth Strategy. Humans would destroy everything useful when retreating from an enemy. They burned crops, poisoned water supplies, and demolished buildings. They preferred to leave nothing behind rather than let enemies use their resources. Even their own people suffered, but humans considered this acceptable. Thalar read the reports with growing horror. They destroy their own lands to deny them to enemies? Yes, sir, and they do it regularly. It is a standard military tactic for them. The alien officers looked at each other with fear. Their own species would never consider such extreme measures. The Zephyrians fought wars to gain territory and resources. The idea of destroying everything valuable seemed insane. On the Thunderstrike, Chief Petty Officer Lisa Grant monitored the ship's defensive systems. She noticed that the alien scanning had been going on for much longer than expected. "Captain, they have been scanning us for over an hour now. That seems excessive for a simple tactical analysis," Lisa reported. Captain Jake Morrison nodded. "They are being very thorough. Maybe they are trying to understand our technology. Or maybe they are looking for weaknesses," suggested Commander Tony Phillips. Jake considered this. "Either way, let them look. We are not hiding anything." But the aliens were discovering things that humans had never intended to share with anyone. Creel opened a file marked Psychological Warfare Methods. The contents made several alien officers step back from the screen in shock. Humans had developed hundreds of ways to break enemy morale without firing a shot. They used fear, confusion, and despair as weapons. The humans would broadcast terrifying sounds during battles to scare enemies. They created fake radio messages to spread panic. They even used their own dead bodies as psychological weapons, leaving them in places where enemies would find them with messages attached. "They use their own dead as weapons," whispered Navigation Officer Trell Vashak. "According to this, they consider it an honor," Krell replied. "They believe dying in battle is the greatest achievement possible." The aliens discovered that humans had a concept called acceptable losses. This meant they were willing to sacrifice large numbers of their own people to achieve victory. Human commanders would send thousands of soldiers to certain death if it helped win a battle. Most alien species tried to minimize casualties in war. Losing too many people was considered a defeat even if you won the battle. But humans saw death in combat as normal and even desirable. Thaler read a report about a human battle called the Charge of the Light Brigade. 600 human soldiers rode horses directly into enemy cannons knowing they would all die. They did it anyway because their commander ordered it. Most of them were killed, but they became heroes to other humans. "They celebrate suicide attacks?" Thaler asked in disbelief. "It appears so, sir. They have many such stories." The scanning continued and found files about human weapons development. The aliens learned that humans had created weapons specifically designed to cause maximum suffering. They had poison gases that slowly killed enemies over days or weeks. They had bombs filled with sharp metal pieces designed to wound rather than kill, because wounded enemies required more resources than dead ones. Humans had also developed weapons that attacked the mind instead of the body. They created sounds and lights that could drive enemies insane. They used drugs that caused hallucinations and panic. Every part of an enemy's existence could become a weapon against them. Lieutenant Commander Steve Walsh noticed unusual energy patterns from the alien ships. "Captain, their formation is becoming less organized. Some ships are drifting out of position." Jake looked at the tactical display. The alien fleet was indeed showing signs of disorder. "Are they having technical problems?" "I do not think so, sir. Their ships appear to be functioning normally, but their positioning suggests confusion or uncertainty." On the Zephyrian flagship, panic was spreading among the crew. Officers were sharing the scan results with each other, and each new discovery made them more afraid. Krell found a section of files labeled Mutually Assured Destruction. This concept was completely alien to the Zephyrians. Humans had built weapons powerful enough to destroy their entire planet. They pointed these weapons at their enemies and said that if anyone attacked them, everyone would die together. "They are willing to destroy their own world rather than be conquered?" asked Communications Officer Yeltharic. "Yes. And according to these files, They came very close to doing it several times during something called the Cold War. The aliens learned that humans had thousands of nuclear weapons pointed at each other for decades. Any mistake or misunderstanding could have ended all life on Earth. But humans lived with this threat every day and considered it normal. Thalar realized that his fleet was not facing a normal enemy. They were facing a species that preferred mutual destruction to defeat. A species that would rather die than surrender. A species that had turned war into their primary reason for existence. The worst part was yet to come. The scanning found references to Earth's current military capabilities. The Thunderstrike was not alone in space. Earth had built an entire fleet of warships, each one as dangerous as the vessel they were currently facing. The planet itself was protected by orbital defense stations with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Automated systems watched every approach to Earth, ready to fire on any hostile ship. The human homeworld was a fortress that would be almost impossible to conquer. But even worse than Earth's defenses was its offensive capability. The files mentioned something called Project Deep Strike, a plan to build weapons that could attack enemy homeworlds from anywhere in the galaxy. Humans were not content to defend themselves. They were planning to take war to their enemies. Homes. Commander Thalar looked around his bridge at his frightened crew. They had come here expecting an easy victory against a primitive species. Instead, they had discovered a nightmare that could destroy everything they had ever known. Commander Thalar felt his hands shaking as he transmitted the scan results to every ship in his fleet. Within minutes, panic spread through all 12 Zephyrian vessels. Crew members who had been confident about an easy victory now stared at their screens in terror. All ship commanders report to secure communication channel, Thalar ordered. He needed to discuss this crisis with his captains immediately. One by one, the faces of his 11 ship commanders appeared on his screen. Each face showed the same expression of fear and disbelief. Captain Vel Thoros of the battleship Starbreaker spoke first. "Commander, are these scan results accurate? Please tell me this is some kind of mistake." Science Officer Vashti has checked the data multiple times. "Everything is confirmed," Thalar replied grimly. Captain Rix Valdor of the heavy cruiser Darkstorm looked sick. "My crew is asking if we should retreat immediately. They say fighting these humans would be suicide." My tactical officer calculated our chances of victory, added Captain Zek Morvac from the destroyer Void Hunter. "Even with our superior numbers, we would lose at least half our ships, maybe more." But the tactical analysis was not the worst part. The psychological impact of the scan results was destroying the morale of the entire fleet. Zephyrian warriors were brave and skilled, but they fought for conquest and glory. The idea of facing an enemy that preferred death to defeat was completely outside their experience. On the Thunderstrike, Lieutenant Amy Parker noticed changes in the alien fleet formation. "Captain, the enemy ships are moving into a wider formation. They seem to be increasing the distance between their vessels." "Captain," Jake Morrison studied the tactical display. "Maybe they are preparing for a different type of attack. Stay alert, everyone." Chief Petty Officer Lisa Grant monitored the ship's weapon systems. "All guns are ready, Captain. If they want to fight, we can give them one." But Jake noticed something else. The alien ships were not moving into attack positions, they were moving into defensive formations. "They are acting like they are afraid of us," he said quietly to Commander Tony Phillips. "Maybe they should be," Phillips replied with a grim smile. Back on the Zephyrian flagship, Science Officer Krell Vashti continued analyzing the human data. Each new discovery made things worse. He found files about human biology that explained why they were such effective warriors. "Commander, the humans have unusual physical capabilities," Krell reported. "Their muscle fibers can produce explosive power when needed. Their nervous systems actually work better under stress. Their bodies release chemicals during combat that make them stronger and faster." Thalar listened with growing dread. "You mean they become more dangerous when they are fighting?" "Yes, sir. Most species become less effective when stressed or injured. Humans become more effective. Pain and fear make them fight harder, not weaker." The biological data revealed more disturbing facts. Humans could function with severe injuries that would disable other species. They could lose large amounts of blood and keep fighting. They could even continue combat with broken bones and damaged Organs. They are built for war, whispered Tactical Officer Vex Kolar. Navigation Officer Trell Vashak was reading psychological profiles from the human database. Commander, their mental conditioning is unlike anything we have seen. They train their minds to ignore pain, fear, and even death. They have mental exercises that prepare them for the worst possible situations. The aliens discovered that human soldiers practiced something called death before dishonor. This meant they would rather die than be captured or surrender. Humans who were taken prisoner often tried to escape or attack their captors even when it meant certain death. Sir, I found records of human prisoners who killed themselves rather than give information to enemies, Vashek reported. They would bite their own tongues off or hold their breath until they died. The Zephyrian officers looked at each other in horror. Their own species would surrender when faced with impossible odds. Survival was more important than victory, but humans seemed to think the opposite way. Captain Vel Thoros spoke again on the communication channel. Commander, my crew is requesting permission to withdraw from this engagement. They say these humans are not natural. They are like demons from the old stories. My sensors officer is having nightmares about the human data, added Captain Rix. Valdor. She says the humans fight wars even when they are at peace. They have mock battles for entertainment. They enjoy conflict. Thaler understood his captain's fear, but he was the fleet commander. He needed to make a decision that could affect the future of the entire Zephyrian Empire. The scan had revealed that Earth was not an easy target for conquest. It was a fortress world defended by warriors who lived for battle. Science Officer. Krell found the final piece of information that would seal the fleet's fate. Deep in the human military files was a document labeled Planetary Defense Protocol. It contained Earth's response plan if the planet was ever attacked by alien forces. Commander, you need to see this immediately, Krell said with panic in his voice. The protocol was simple and terrifying. If Earth was attacked, every human in the solar system would fight to the death. There would be no surrender, no negotiation, no mercy. They would use every weapon available, including ones that could destroy their own planet. The document contained a phrase that chilled every alien who read it. Earth will never fall. If we cannot save it, we will make sure our enemies cannot have it either. They would destroy their own world rather than let us take it, Thaler said in disbelief. Yes, sir. And according to this protocol, they have weapons positioned throughout their solar system that can do exactly that. The scan had revealed the truth about humanity. They were not just another species to be conquered. They were a force of nature that would fight until nothing remained. Victory against them was possible, but the cost would be enormous. Commander Thalar looked at his frightened crew and made the decision that would save his fleet, and possibly his entire species. The hunt was over. It was time to run. Commander Thalar stood alone on his bridge for several minutes, thinking about the most important decision of his life. The scan results lay before him like a death sentence. His fleet could attack the human ship and probably win, but the cost would be terrible. Worse, it would bring the attention of the entire human race to the Zephyrian Empire. All ships, this is Commander Thalar, he announced on the fleet communication channel. We are withdrawing from this engagement immediately. Prepare for emergency. Hyperspace jump. Captain Vel Thoros responded quickly. Sir, are we retreating? We are making a strategic withdrawal to reassess the situation, Thaler replied. He did not want to use the word retreat, but that was exactly what they were doing. On the Thunderstrike, Lieutenant Amy Parker watched her sensors in confusion. Captain, the alien ships are powering up their hyperspace engines. It looks like they are preparing to leave. Captain Jake Morrison frowned. They are leaving without a fight? Yes, sir. All 12 ships are moving away from us and charging their jump drives. Commander Tony Phillips looked puzzled. Maybe they decided we are not worth the trouble, or maybe they realized we are tougher than they thought, suggested Chief Petty Officer Lisa Grant. Jake was confused but relieved. First contact with an alien species had not ended in battle. That was good news for everyone. Stand down from battle stations, but keep our weapons ready until they are gone. The Zephyrian fleet moved away from the Thunderstrike in perfect formation. Each ship maintained precise distance from the others as they prepared for the jump to hyperspace. But their organized retreat could not hide the fear that filled every alien heart. Science Officer Krell Vashti worked frantically to compile all the scan data into a complete report. This information had to reach Zephyrian High Command as quickly as possible. The Empire needed to know about the threat that humanity represented. "Commander, the data package is ready for transmission," Krell reported. "Mark it with the highest possible priority code," Thalar ordered, "and add a personal message from me. Tell them that humanity is not just another species to be conquered. They are a danger to every living thing in the galaxy." The fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving the human ship alone in the dark space between stars. The 12 Zephyrian vessels disappeared in flashes of blue light, taking with them knowledge that would change the course of galactic history. On the Thunderstrike, the crew watched the alien ships vanish with mixed feelings of relief and disappointment. "Well, that was anticlimactic," said Lieutenant Commander Steve Walsh. "I was hoping to learn more about them," added Amy Parker. "We barely had a chance to study their technology, but Captain Morrison was thinking about bigger things. That was not a random encounter. They were looking for us specifically. This means there are other species out there and they know about Earth." "Should we report this to Earth Command?" asked Phillips. "Immediately. And we need to recommend that Earth increase its defenses. If there is one alien fleet out there, there are probably others." The Thunderstrike began its journey back to Earth, carrying news that would transform human civilization. The message Jake sent ahead would trigger the largest military buildup in human history. Meanwhile, the Zephyrian fleet raced through hyperspace, toward their home territory. The journey would take several days, but the urgent message was transmitted instantly through quantum communication networks. The message reached Zephyrian High Command within hours. Admiral Vorth Kelvak, the supreme military commander of the Empire, read the report 3 times before calling an emergency session of the War Council. "Gentlemen, we have a problem," Admiral Kelvak announced to the assembled commanders. "Our scouts have encountered a new species that represents an existential threat to our empire." The War Council chamber fell silent as Kelvak presented the scan data from the human ship. Page after page of technical specifications, weapon capabilities, and military doctrine appeared on the main screen. General Tex Vorlak, commander of the ground forces, spoke first. "Sir, are you saying that one ship defeated our entire scout fleet?" "No, General. I am saying that one ship scared our fleet so badly that they retreated without firing a shot." The implications were clear to every officer in the room. The Zephyrian Empire had built its power on the conquest of weaker species. They had never encountered a species that might be stronger than they were. Admiral Kelvak continued his briefing. "According to this data, the humans have turned warfare into their primary cultural activity. They do not fight wars to gain territory or resources. They fight wars because that is what they are." "What do you recommend, Admiral?" asked Fleet Commander Yix Maldor. "Complete avoidance of human space. All ships are to stay at least 50 light-years away from their solar system. We will establish monitoring stations to track their expansion, but we will not engage them directly." The decision was unanimous. The Zephyrian Empire, which had conquered dozens of species across hundreds of star systems, would run from humanity. But the aliens were not the only ones making plans. Back on Earth, Captain Morrison's report triggered immediate action. Within days, construction began on new orbital defense platforms. Shipyards that had been building cargo vessels were converted to military production. The entire Sol system became a fortress. Human intelligence agencies analyzed every piece of data they had gathered about the alien ships. Engineers studied the energy signatures and tried to reverse engineer alien technology. Military planners developed strategies for interstellar warfare. Most importantly, Earth began building new ships, bigger ships, more powerful ships. Ships designed specifically for taking the fight to enemy homeworlds. The age of human expansion was about to begin. 3 months later, the first human exploration fleets left Sol system. Their mission was officially listed as Scientific Research and Peaceful Contact. but every ship carried enough firepower to destroy entire planets. Humanity had learned that they were not alone in the galaxy. They had also learned that other species might see them as enemies. The human response was simple and predictable. They would meet any threat with overwhelming force. The aliens had made a terrible mistake. They had shown humanity that the galaxy was full of potential enemies. Now humanity would prepare for war on a scale that the universe had never seen. The scan of Earth's warship had indeed revealed instant doom, but the doom was not for humanity. It was for everyone else.